Have a motion to sign Treasury Warrant 21 and payroll.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to accept minutes of March 26th.
Make a motion to accept Monday, March 26th, 5:30 PM meeting minutes as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept February 26th minutes.
As presented, so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
No, you can't.
26.
February.
February. Yeah.
Okay.
Second.
Abstain from that one.
Except with Wayne extension. Motions for appointment for Sargeant on the police department. Would have a motion to appoint.
Make a motion to appoint Diane Herzig, Sergeant for the Rutland Police Department.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Dib aye.
Walker, aye.
All those opposed?
Pantos, aye.
I
Nay, I
abstain.
should say, sorry.
I am abstain from the vote. So Diane Herzig is now our new sergeant, full-time sergeant. Motion to appoint Fred Galvin as DPW Stormwater.
Oh, it's Fred Sivian presentation?
Fred's not here yet, so I think initially we told him 6:30, so if we can kind of move him on.
All right, we can do that. Where do you see that? Well, we're gonna go from appointments to the police chief, Nick Monaco, department updates.
Good evening. So we had a lot of stuff going on, all good stuff. Getting very involved with community policing. We held the senior luncheon in January. It was a great success, and we actually started to make plans to do a senior barbecue in the summertime. So we'll do one thing in the winter, one thing in the summer. We've been real involved with the Boy Scout troops. We've been to both Pinewood Derbies. We've been attending and participating in their meetings. We've been doing tours at the station, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. What else we're doing? We assigned Mai Grover as a school resource officer. She's been working a lot in the schools. I'm getting nothing but good feedback from the principals, from everybody at school. She's been working with the school resource officer at Wachusett High School as well. She's been coordinating programs at the schools like the face-to-face drug program. She set up a presentation on cyberbullying, and she's just generally acting as a liaison with the school. Also, we've had officers and myself in the school for Community Reading Day, and we had an officer do a presentation at STEM night at the Glenwood School. Also, we've had officers involved in an Easter egg hunt at the community center and present for the Easter breakfast at the Congregational Church. Devereaux, we had a basketball game against the kids a couple weeks ago. It went very well. We had one injury at the game, but other than that, it was a great success. The kids loved it. The officers all had a good time. We did lose, but not by too much. So they've been practicing quite a bit. And also in regards to Devereaux, we've been having such a great relationship with the school. We've been meeting with Carrie Ann on a regular basis, and I think that our calls for service up there are going down. The arrests and incidents are really going down. We've only had a handful of juvenile arrests, I think, since July. So things are going well there. Canine grant. We got the money from the canine grant. We've chosen to assign Officer Jay Citronell to be the handler. Jay's going to be a great choice. He lives in town, has a big piece of property, plenty of room for the dog to run around and play and train out there. Dog's actually going to arrive this week. It's an 11-month-old German Shepherd named Orkin. So hopefully we'll be able to introduce him pretty soon.
Could you get
and rename
Jay
him.
to stand up so people know who he is?
Congratulations, Jay.
Small world. Jay's neighbor is actually a Worcester police officer, and he came over to Jay's house the other day and said, "Hey Jay, I'm going to the same canine school as you." So they're actually both going to be starting training in Boston. 17th, Jay?
It's the 17th.
April 17th. What else? Cruiser conversion is complete, and the kennel is almost complete at Jay's house. Let's see. We have the canine policy already in place. It's been distributed to Jay to study and the rest of the staff so they can get familiarized with it. Regarding cruisers, the fleet's fully functional. We're keeping on top of maintenance. One car sustained some minor damage in a motor vehicle accident at Honey Farms last week. Turns out it was the other driver's fault, so it's not going to cost the town anything. Regarding personnel updates, both of our newly hired full-time officers have completed field training. They're settling in nicely. This is Officer Jesse Catino over here. The other officer, Ryan Maddy, he couldn't make it today, but I will bring him in to meet the board someday soon. Officer John Sargeant has been assigned to be detective. He's been following up on cases and investigations. He's doing a great job so far. Training, everybody's been to or is scheduled to attend annual in-service. We're keeping on top of everybody's certifications, mandated training. We're doing a lot of elective training too, all free of cost. We're finding all sorts of different places to go. We get all our new firearms. Everybody's been qualified on them. Budget-wise, salaries and wages are on track. We're going to make the end of the year with no issues. The expense lines are pretty tight, but we're going to tighten the belt up and we'll stay within our means. Statistically, we got 44 crashes so far this year, 23 arrests, 27 summonses, 175 incident reports. And the only other major thing I want to report on is the conviction of Michael Dowjett in the murder of the 2014 murder of David Allen. He's been convicted of second-degree murder. Sergeant Chauvin was involved in the testimony. So everybody did a great job there. That's all I got.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Dick.
I just want to add to what the chief said about Devereaux. The town and Devereaux have really been working hard to increase the partnership, and I honestly think that the community policing presence at Devereaux is making a huge difference. So thank you. I think it's making a huge difference.
So we'll go back to public comment, seeing how I skipped over it. Anybody here with public comment?
Dick Williams, Overlook. Let's see, somebody else is doing it?
No, you're there.
I'm going to stay on the lighter side, but the one thing I do want to bring up to the board is something that's been on my back of my mind for a long time, even when Kyle Christensen was here. And that's the skateboard park that you took down from NACOG. And I'm back then, and the select board says, well, we'll put it up in the very near future. And it was never put back up again. And that's one of the things I've been feeling a little bit, that I kind of wish there was some way to the skateboard park or anything to keep the youth in Rutland busy with sports. I in this day and age, I think it's very critical that give them a place to go. And that's one of the things that I wish that hopefully in the future that you could talk about it. Maybe find somebody who could run for a grant or whatever, and let's see what we can do about maybe getting one. I talk to Margaret once in a while about the one I see out to Turner Falls. They spent $500,000 on that one, and always used, constantly, for crying out loud. It is unbelievable how much the age grew. I mean, there's little kids in there, and there are grown-ups in there going back and forth. So it's just one of those things I thought.
Any idea where we could get a $500,000, Dick?
Pardon?
Any idea where we could get a $500,000?
So
Well,
Turner's
never say never.
Turner's used a combination of funding for their skate park. They did have some local matches. They did do a major fundraising effort locally, but they also used a park grant, the DCR park grant, because they had their open space and rec plan approved. So they mixed all those funding sources together and were able to build the skate park.
Now, how about the vocational occupational from Devereaux? Would they be able to build anything for us to utilize and that would be a great project local for the school as well as giving back to the community. That would be the only area that I would think that would A, expedite matters, and B, keep it at a very low cost. The only thing you would be looking at is donation of materials, unless they have some materials that they could donate as well.
Speaking with the executive director tomorrow, so we'll talk about it.
Just a thought as far as, it would be a worthwhile project for the kids,
Yeah.
that they could even benefit themselves as well as give back to the community.
Sounds
Think
good.
it would be a win-win, because I know in this critical budget year, I'm not gonna find $500,000.
That's
Dick,
very true.
Dick, I know the Naquag location was not great for a skateboard park, and I mean, it had just disintegrated. We all saw it. I know that Karina has certainly she's kind of mapped out a spot that would fit, not a big one, not a Turner's Falls level park, but when you think of the size of Hubbardston's, which gets in quite a bit of traffic as well, it's doable, and it's doable closer to the public safety building, closer to all of our other, centralized things. I really think we need maybe somebody local who would volunteer to pour. That's what we need. I think the site prep work, it's already pretty flat there, but we need to pour a good-sized concrete base. And then we could go from there with the construction of ramps and things like that.
Or utilize the hillside.
Or you
Yeah, or use the hill, a little bit. And it would be great, because, I think we're trying to keep them off that refurbished basketball court because people want to play basketball there. And where do you go? I get it, yeah.
Well, it's something that I think should be, keep pushing it. Let's just keep pushing
All
it.
right.
The other thing was, I gotta, the landmark. I talked to Barbara Brown of the landmark today, and she and I are gonna get together, so it'd be one of these things that either I'm gonna have a laugh or I'm gonna stick my foot in my mouth, but you guys will, you'll see it in a couple months, it's when it goes out to all the towns.
What are we talking about there?
Oh, you'll see it. You'll see
I'm
it.
totally clueless as what you're referring to.
Let's put it this way, you probably drive it. You drive on it.
Okay?
And at the moment, that's it. I would like to talk sometime in the near future about your sewer and water commission. I think it's getting time for you guys to get involved in it by getting somebody else involved and taking away from. It's so much for Gary. It's much for you. I think it should be separate. And that's my opinion.
You're referring to an independent board?
That's correct.
So an independent board's still gonna try to.
It's still gonna,
govern Gary.
of course.
So,
But, why not take some of the burden off of them and put it on the commission?
like what? Like the rates? We do-
Rules and regulations that need update, and what's going on with DCR? There's things, you guys must be out straight trying to, do your own things here, but to me, it's critical. I see another house is going in, and they're gonna put an E1 system up, right across, underneath the road, up on private land. And to me, I thought that was all wrong. 3,000 feet of pipe right along the road would have been all gravity fed. To me, what's going to happen in the future unless you get somebody out there to start looking into the future?
Now, Dick, are there any grants are available through
Central Mass?
Central Mass that would allow us to do some mapping and also some long-term planning as far as what is proper protocol, as far as, you don't go under a road, you use gravity feed as in your example, things of that nature for what I would consider to be best practices versus what,
Well, it's something
hodgepodge for better definitions.
I'll do some asking.
That'd be great.
And,
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I'll find out.
Because
what we can
maybe
do.
they can give us some guidance.
Yeah. We'll give it a whirl.
Okay.
Jump over and do these.
I mean, I know they're involved with many communities in
Okay.
Central Mass, so
Oh,
they
yes.
might be able to give us some guidance towards how do we get to that.
There might be other sources of funding out there too.
Okay.
My last thing is going to say, it's nice to see all these people in here, but please, wherever the camera is. Come on, people, come on in and sit down and enjoy this and speak out, because I feel that, you know, that's what we're here for. In other words, stay off my phone and come in here and talk.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
The mic's open, right, Dick?
Say again?
The mic's open.
Yes, it is.
Open mic.
Anybody else for public comment? If hearing none, we're gonna kind of jump around a little bit. We're gonna go over to the new
Appointments?
business, veteran service, resignation of our veteran service administrator. Vote to accept, please.
Make a motion to accept the resignation with regrets from the Veterans Agent. Do we have anything happening as far as backup?
Yes. So his effective date of resignation is June 1st, and I've already been in touch with two people, one through Karen Greenwood, actually, to fill Steve's slot. So my hope is that we get someone on board to allow Steve to transition.
Is he just resigning from Rutland, or is other
Just
towns?
Just Rutland.
So he's keeping the other towns that he's currently involved
He's
with?
only got one, I think he's only got one other town at the moment, but.
Used to be 5.
Yeah, no, I think.
His
I don't-
predecessor had 5, Spencer, Brookfield, Leicester, us, and
No.
Paxton, I believe.
Yeah, no, I think he's only got one other town. Yeah,
Okay?
and it's a small town.
So do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Conservation resignation.
Make a motion to accept the resignation of Scott Landgren effective March 27th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Appointment to the Agricultural Commission.
Make a motion to accept Jesse Clayman and appoint Jesse Clayman to become a member of the commission in one of the vacant alternate positions as recommended by the Agricultural Commission.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Jesse Clayman. Would you like to speak? No.
Board of Registrar appointment.
Make a motion to reappoint Todd Robbins, 9 Watson Lane, Democrat, term expiration 2021, and Holly Haynes, 10 Cameron Drive, Republican, term expiration 2020, to the Board of Registrars.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Appointment to CIPC appointment.
Make a motion to appoint Daniel Gracie to the CIPC as per the recommendation of the CIPC.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. He's not here tonight, is he?
He is not here tonight, and there's still an additional vacancy on CIPC for anybody who might be interested. Contact Harry Seckman, the chair.
What a wonderful background. Mm-hmm. Somebody relatively new in town, and great that he's stepping up.
Is Fred here by any chance? How about the appointment of, it's not even 6:30 yet. Oh, let's go to Gary Kelleher. How was your vacation, Gary?
Very good, thank you, sir.
Not long enough? Is that what you said?
Yeah, not long enough. The only thing I see on my agenda tonight is Glenwood Place. Planning board sent me a notice regarding the extension of Glenwood Place for an additional 340 some odd feet. Once I got that notice, I did go out and inspect that and sent a couple of recommendations of mine. Dick, I don't know if you're aware of them. One was that a successful turnaround to accommodate all DPW equipment up to and including a road grader. And secondly was to fill in Their ditch, that's quite a steep drop off. Mike, as you know, we have that problem in other sections of town that I want that filled in, allow for proper drainage and stability. I did not put this on as my agenda item, but, so I don't know if the board has any questions regarding that.
Now, we're being requested to approve that extension, that 300 footer?
Yeah, that's going through the planning board to approve that extension of 300+ feet.
Okay.
And that stems from
So do you-
measurements that we've taken in the past, Mike, where I have.
Yeah, I remember where we had our discussion. So do we need to act on this at all?
No.
Do we have anything in front of us, Margaret?
There's no request. There's no request as far as requesting the board to lay out this portion of Glenwood Place at this point. The only thing we have is notice from the planning board on it. That's it.
Okay.
That was placed as, in my absence, that was placed as an agenda item, so just
Okay.
addressing that. Obviously, moving on. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I do have a question. The turnaround is gonna be large enough for your equipment. Is it gonna be large enough for all the fire equipment that we have?
It should be with the road grader, Wayne, and that would be part of the stipulation that has to certainly allow for emergency services.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yes. The road is stable, wide enough once the shoulders are filled, but those shoulders have to be filled. And that turnaround does have to be created.
Okay.
Okay?
So is there anything that specific the planning board was looking for here other than discussion from the board?
I think it's probably just discussion from the board, Margaret.
Okay.
And then it probably would have to come before a town meeting.
It's gotta go town meeting floor vote, yes. And it's gotta be added, request made, sent to Mass Highway for the extension of,
Okay.
to be accepted as road inventory and therefore eligible for chapter 90.
Okay. All right, but because the board hasn't received any request to lay out that portion of roadway, so it has not been added as a placeholder on either of the town meeting warrants yet.
Okay, informational. No questions from the board?
Nope, not
Not
from
now.
me. Later, maybe.
Okay, I would like to talk to the board, to the public, to Margaret. I'll start with Ms. Dibb. Ms. Dibb, you put a request in to take care of some issues due to the anniversary of the ice storm. I'd like to remind the board that when the ice storm came to town, so did Kelleher. And that was my first task. And I have decided to move on. So I am hereby notifying the board that my decision will be to leave on December 4th, 2018. I would like to extend sorry, my heartfelt thanks to all. I will tell you that I've appreciated the board's support. I've appreciated the town's support. Fellow department heads, every board and committee in town. I think we've made great strides and got a lot done. Everyone knows how I feel about my department and how I feel how they've grown and can pretty much accomplish anything in this town. I want the board to know that in the last 8 months that I have here, I will continue to move on and get things done, and hopefully to close some of the chapters in my book. December 4th will be my 40th year anniversary, and in all that time, I have never worked with such a great town and such a great crew. That's all departments included. And I want you to know that I mean that. 01543 has been my home. To my crew and my support staff, to you folks, to Margaret, to Abby, I certainly appreciate your help, and I certainly appreciate all that this town has given to me, to my department, to the needs we have. But like I say, it's time for Kelleher to move on. So, with that, I really don't feel like we need any discussion at this time. But my date is set in stone. It will be December 4th of 2018. I truly honor all of you people. For the sake of this conversation, I'll say my people, but they're not. We work very well together. We are more than co-workers.
I'll say it, Gary. It's a team. It's a team.
We are friends. We are best friends. We are comrades. And we're there for each other around the clock, and have been, as most of the other departments, all of the other departments have been for me. Everybody, I really have no complaints. I have no bad fingers to point. I have no bad words to say. That'll about do it. So, I thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Kelleher for his years of service on the record formally, as well as with regrets on his resignation, but I understand where he's coming from, and the next chapter of his life as he retires and moves on. We wish him well, and again, thank him for his years of service to the town of Rutland.
Aye.
Amen to that.
Brenda's not here yet. So I guess we're gonna go to the appointment of Peter Crane, the bylaw subcommittee, yeah.
How am I supposed to follow that?
You're not gonna do
You
very good
usually
job.
do.
There are things I can try. Pardon me while I try to get all this equipment running right now. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Peter Crane. I am here as consultant to the Bylaw Review Subcommittee and the Town Clerk. I'm here this evening to discuss 5 bylaws, 4 amendments, and 1 new bylaw that we would like you to consider to put on the annual town meeting warrant, please. So where to begin? Excuse me for 1 second.
Oh. Mark doesn't have the
Closer.
markups. Mark is. What is that? The-
So unless I'm mistaken, you have the Finance Committee first in
Yeah.
your packet.
We just didn't get
Okay.
anything official.
Just did it. Oh, good.
I guess it was.
I was concerned that these didn't have the markups.
Oh, they
That
don't.
would be
Oh, the
very
way she printed them,
difficult.
okay.
That happens, yes.
Yeah, you have to
Okay.
you need to select things the right way in Word to get it to view what you really want to see. And this is my preferred view for markups as opposed to the strike view where everything gets, for me, messy to read.
We agree, Pete.
The very first thing I want to point out is something that I've spoken to you about before, which is the codification project. Each of these bylaws has been through that process, which involves formatting, readability, moving things around to make the structure more consistent wherever we can, and then And then we start modifying things in the way that we think is best for future growth for the town. So for example, we have a bylaw on the books today that defines what a member of a committee is. And so, where it used to say, consisting of 7 legal voters of the town, it now says members. That, in fact, will be consistent throughout all the bylaws when we're done. There will be a future, there will come a time, probably at about this time next year, when we will come before you with the entire body of bylaws. So I don't want to go in depth into codification right now. Yes?
Question, why members instead of residents or voters?
Because we have a bylaw that defines what a member of a multi-member body is, must be what the requirements are.
Okay, so for clarification, you want to take out the duplication of that?
Yes. I want to, more specifically, I want to resolve conflict. In that if the requirement is one thing and a bylaw says a different thing, which one takes precedence?
So where's the conflict?
Well, the conflict today
Yeah.
is that the bylaw says that you must be a resident of town, and this bylaw says you must be, in its current form, says you must be a voter in town.
Okay,
So those two bylaws are in conflict today.
okay. So which one should supersede the other?
That is not made clear by bylaws, so I don't know which actually takes precedence.
Since we have the moderator here, I'll ask the question to the moderator. Have you had a chance to review the document? Do you have an opinion on the document?
Not at the current moment.
Say again?
Not at the current moment.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail. I had
That's
just
quite all
the,
right. There are a great many things in this that have changed in here, but the most important thing is that this bylaw is structurally broken. Who knows how many Finance Committee members are up for renewal this year at annual town meeting?
hopefully the moderator does. 2.
The answer is 3 this year. This is
Okay.
the year where there are 3. Does anyone know
Okay.
how many members by bylaw the town moderator may appoint in any year?
2.
2.
And there's 3 up.
There are 3 up.
So how does that work?
Well, I suspect strongly that we sort of
I'll point
turned
out.
an ignorant blind
This-
eye to the bylaw.
Anita, when was this bylaw created?
Peter has the history. I forget what it was. It was like in
1941.
Okay.
Okay.
February 3, 1941.
Things have carried for a number
So-
of years.
Well, it's been
Well,
amended.
Were there 5 members at that point in time?
No,
maybe?
at that time there were 6. There were still 7 members. There were
Okay.
6 town members, 6
I'm just wondering where the 2 came from versus the 3. That's what I was
6
trying
legal
to-
voters and 1 and the town accountant. In, I believe, 1997, the town accountant was completely removed.
Correct.
And so at that point, there have always been 7 members of the committee.
Okay, yeah, all right.
But in 97, that's when the error occurred or the problem occurred on the appointment.
Because of the removal of the town accountant.
Well, I actually think that the problem began at the very beginning of time with this bylaw. Because what the original author of the bylaw did not think about people who resign from committees. Because the way it was laid out, you get 2 for 1 year, 2 for 2 years, 2 for 3 years, and then you appoint to replace the 2 you lost.
Okay.
But no consideration been given to any other reason that a seat may need to be filled.
Gotcha.
So I believe it was a simple oversight, but one we really need to repair.
All right.
And so the structural piece is in D here, the red text at each annual town meeting thereafter, the moderator thereof shall appoint replacements for members whose terms are expiring and any other vacancies for terms so as to maintain the staggered appointment cycle. It's a lot of words to just say, get them all filled, please. That's the biggest and most important change to this bylaw.
Okay.
If you'd like, I can go through each of the changes. I'm not sure that's a good use of your or the town's time.
I think we can read it.
I would hope so. So are there questions about the Finance Committee amendment?
Has the moderator received a copy as of yet?
Not Anita has, oh, there's Anita. Have we sent him copies yet? Because I know we talked about it, but we didn't.
May I,
You did talk to the finance committee about it.
I have talked to the finance committee. I was at one of their meetings for
and
that.
have they received a copy of the proposed changes
Yes.
and recommendations?
And we worked on that, on this section together.
Okay, all right. So the only one that's out of the loop is the moderator.
I'm gonna ask you a question.
Yes, ma'am.
For D, with the way you phrased that and took out the terms, and I understand you added terms to C, you could make an argument that the moderator would then have the ability to move terms around. They would still be staggered, but they don't have to be 3 years.
So,
Okay, yeah, I accept that, sure. Yes, Margaret?
the terms,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. So you're absolutely right, Sheila, and the current bylaw does specify three-year terms.
Right.
So, okay.
I will also point out, this has not been through legal review yet, so we'll see
Right.
what fun comes
Understood.
back with that.
Understood. So, at this point in time, what's the next step for this other than presenting it to us?
Legal review.
Legal
Go
review.
through
I'm
legal
gonna be
review
sending
and
them
gets
all together.
placed on the
Okay.
warrant.
Just looking for the, okay. Legal review and placement for this town meeting's
For
warrant?
this annual, yes.
Peter, the other thing under C, you write when this bylaw becomes effective, but these bylaws, this is an edit, and
That's
The
true,
bylaw, right?
but the bylaw was effective in 1941,
right.
and so
So-
this section C will never be exercised again. It was exercised one time.
Right. So it maybe would be when this bylaw's update, a dated update becomes effective. It's not when the bylaw becomes effective. It's when that addition becomes effective. Does that make sense? You didn't rewrite the bylaw.
So-
You're
Correct.
adding to the bylaw,
Amending, not that.
amending. Well,
Uh,
that's an
actually,
addition.
Absent deleting that paragraph altogether and rewriting it so that it picks up from here on out, I think keeping the original adoption date of the bylaw actually makes sense, because that's when the original bylaw, I mean, you could say something like when this original bylaw becomes effective, or something that's going to refer you to the 1941 date or whatever that,
I'm sure legal will
yes,
put the
Yes.
appropriate verbiage in there.
yes. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Now,
Yeah, let me give the moderator a copy. I can get mine emailed.
town meetings, an oldie but a goodie. Were you to see this version of it, you actually see comments back to legal. This has actually already been through legal review once, and we made changes since then, so it'll go back through legal review.
Okay.
We'll talk about, and specifically about these changes, because these are rather important, I think. And the first one is, during the codification process, I took up, things were said 3 or 4 times, and that was ridiculous. So I combined lots of paragraphs together and streamlined the language, which is why instead of having 3 different sections that talk about an annual meeting and election, we have one section that defines everything. The biggest change to this section are the red lines in 1A, which is to say that the date, we are proposing that the date of annual town meeting be changed to the 3rd Monday in May.
Why
Now,
Monday?
people are going to ask why, and and there are 2 simple answers to this. Number 1, town clerk has received many requests to get it off a weekend, and not only just off a weekend on a Saturday night, it's the Saturday night before Mother's Day more often than not. So that by itself suggests a change.
Okay, but I would counter that with same number of people feel they cannot attend during the week, and they feel that having it on a Saturday opens it up for higher attendance because folks don't have to go to work or be back in time from work, things of that nature. So the argument has merit on both parts.
I don't say it doesn't have merit. The other, well, so the reason to move it to a Monday is specifically to, oh, why does that say that? Doesn't matter. To deal with getting away from Mother's Day. The subcommittee believes that it's best to move it a little later so that we get a little better financial information going into town meeting. This is much like the reasoning that we had for proposed to move to June.
Yeah.
No one wanted to move it all the way to June this time, so we're moving.
That's a given. I mean, the later you have it, the more financial information we get from the state,
Right.
the better decisions we can make.
So is it better philosophically to have it on a Saturday, on a weekend night or a weeknight? I mean,
I don't know.
I don't have a scientific answer as much as I would like to give you one. I can't say more people can make it on Saturday than on a weeknight. I can't say more people can make it on a weeknight than on a Saturday. I don't know.
I don't either, Peter. The only thing is I've heard it from both
Yep.
sides. So I just want to make sure that is being recognized as well.
Can the moderator make it?
I believe so.
You can do Mondays?
And
I gotta get up early on Tuesday.
Huh?
I gotta get up early on Tuesday morning.
and
That's a good
Peter,
reason to keep it short, right? Keep it moving.
and Peter, the subcommittee is flipping the election again.
That is a side effect of that because, well, actually, again, I can go to two reasons. The first reason is that if we keep the election on the same date, then we have the schools, because we know they're going to be closed because all 5 towns have their elections that night.
Right.
Number 2, what's the 4th Monday in May?
Labor Day.
Labor Day.
Well, Memorial Day.
Memorial
Oh,
Day.
sorry.
So we don't want to have it on that day, that's for sure.
Memorial Day. Yeah, I flipped. Yeah.
It's okay, I was right there with you.
I know.
Okay.
It's a Monday holiday. I was good.
So that is, you're right, the side effect of doing that.
So the bylaw subcommittee recommends moving the elections to.
No, keeping the election
No,
exactly
election's
where
the
it
same.
is.
Keeping the election where it is, but having new elected officials in place potentially for the town meeting.
Which we always had, right, Anita?
We used to
Up until
always.
We used-
4
3 years ago.
4 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
And the argument was made that how can somebody that was newly elected defend a budget or defend articles that they were not a part of placing?
And
And I would say the response is no matter what, there will be someone from the old board present.
Sure, for sure.
Because there can't not be if there's going to be a quorum at town meeting.
I mean, the other additional or opposite arguments, however you're headed with this, is that the town meeting does not belong to the Board of Selectmen. It is the
Right.
Finance Committee presenting the budget. The materials have already been completed and presented. Anything that's on the ballot has already been completed. Obviously, at this case, it obviously would be. And then, I know there was discussion at one point, and I don't know how much it's really come to pass or if it's an issue in other communities, that people who are up for re-election would then use the meeting for an upcoming election after the meeting.
I think we can trust the moderator to prevent that from happening.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, again, there are no perfect solutions, there are only trade-offs.
Understood.
And this is the trade-off that the committee believes overall is best.
Peter, this is my favorite bylaw
Is it?
change of yours. Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. I consider town meeting, it's a business meeting. It should be on a business night.
Okay. Other questions on date of the meeting before we move on? There are a couple other things that we need to point out on this one. One of them is you actually see on the bottom of the page, the current quorum for a town meeting is 10. We are proposing changing that to 30 people,
Okay.
which we apparently haven't had any problem getting even on the lightly attended ones lightly. Right,
Yeah.
Anita?
Well, once you have the FinCom and board, you've got a quorum over 10.
You've got 10, exactly.
It's reflective of the town growing, right?
Most of the rest of this stays as is. There's some very boring.
So
that one's- yes.
Peter, you have time, speaking limits.
Yes. Current bylaw says that no person may speak for more than 10 minutes on any question, et cetera, et cetera. And at the last legal review, the lawyer said, this is a very long time. And I said to myself, she's right, that is a very long time, especially with the population in our town. And if everyone decides to speak for 10 minutes, we'll never be done at town meeting. So the proposal is to reduce it to 5. We don't believe that there will be a problem with a 5-minute time limit.
That's still a good chunk of time.
It's still a noticeable amount of time. Now, mind you, there are still issues like presentations, especially presentations from third parties, that will run for more than 5 or the 10 minutes today. And those are resolved by having the town moderator allow it, and if necessary, have the body vote.
So do you put verbiage on there that it defaults to the town moderator for presentations? Just so that it's crystal clear?
Well, no one is allowed to speak without being recognized by the moderator. No
Understood.
one. So, I mean, that's already there.
Just asking the question.
And again, can spend more than 5 minutes extended by vote of the town meeting. So there's a mechanism for anyone to allow
Okay.
to speak longer.
No, I was referring strictly
Fine.
to presentations, not speaking.
One, that I'm not sure that distinction actually exists.
Okay.
It
Because
doesn't.
anyone who's going to have a presentation at town meeting is going to have a presentation on a question.
Right.
So I believe it's still,
We've had informational ones,
Right.
not necessarily for upcoming.
we call them informational. Technically, they are still part of debate.
Okay.
Once the question's been moved, you're in debate.
Okay.
What precipitated you adding a limit of debate?
I didn't add it. All I
Or,
changed was.
excuse me, changing it the way you did. I mean, it's fundamentally changing the way people can address a question if they feel it's important.
Only by the time limit, because
Right.
most of what's here exists in the current bylaw.
Right. A exists as it is today. That is today's bylaw.
Yeah.
That was highlighted only because.
Right.
Oh, because
the-
the ask the question? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Yep.
So that's the only reason that's highlighted. There are no changes there.
Sorry.
Okay.
And to continue, I don't.
I have a question, and I'm not certain if it's appropriate that I ask. But if you go back to your 30, your
Quorum of 30? Yes.
some communities run a percentage of people, like Holden, if I'm not mistaken, runs 1%.
Yeah.
Would you consider putting a percentage in there of the registered voters, so then you don't have to readdress this as the town either increases in size or decreases in size?
I don't object to that if we had the math to suggest that we are going to reasonably exceed, that we virtually always exceed 1% of the registered voters. So we haven't done the math to know that that's not feasible.
Well, the town of Holden has challenges with 1%, because that's like 214 people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that we go as high as 1%, I'm just saying that
Well-
you may consider that.
I don't see any reason to not consider it, sure. We hadn't talked about it, we hadn't looked at it that way at the committee meetings.
Well, I think to the moderator's point, a defined number is a solid number. You can count solid heads. When you're talking about percentage, then you have to go back to see right before the meeting, what's the number of
What's the
registered
roll?
voters, do the math, and the town clerk has to bring it to the meeting to ensure that you have a quorum. So a solid number to me, whatever that number is determined to be as appropriate, is a little bit less debatable. Would you agree?
All I'm bringing up is for discussion.
No, but it's a good
I
point.
agree, and
It's
I think-
understandable.
I think that we can discuss that at the next committee meeting. We'll get that on the agenda, make sure that this is there. And we'll explicitly talk about it. Nobody had until now, so I'm glad you brought it up, because it's a different way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Completion. There's the last one, and that one's actually also a biggie. Remembering that we are at the third Monday in May, should the meeting be adjourned before all business is complete, when does the subsequent meeting take place? It used to say adjourned 1 week to the same time and place as the adjourned meeting was scheduled. The problem is, of course,
It's a holiday.
that's a holiday. And our proposal is to have the next day set aside at the school, excuse me.
The second day, that Tuesday.
That's right, so the Tuesday to follow on. That way everybody knows exactly when it is. We had actually thought about putting it up to the body left when it was going to be adjourned. But anybody who's tried to set up a schedule with 10 people, forget 30.
Forget 130.
Exactly. It becomes untenable. So, and there's also this problem of having a date certain of adjournment. So this fixes it for when it would be, if we need to follow up.
That doesn't allow any leeway. I mean, it says 1 day, so it doesn't say, I mean, in lots of cases with these types of bylaws in towns, it's, town meeting adjourns to a date certain. So town meeting is allowed to pick the day, or the moderator's allowed to suggest the day, but this doesn't give any leeway at all. I'm just trying to think, I'm being devil's advocate here.
Sure.
Just trying to think of a worst-case scenario where you can not adjourn 1 day. So,
Well, you
anyway.
You wouldn't necessarily if you kept it on, if the body doesn't vote to keep it on a Monday night and you go back to the Saturday night. It'd be challenging to have a town meeting on a Sunday night because of some religions.
Right.
Yes, so there,
It's
yes,
actually
that's a
challenging
good
to have it on a
example,
Saturday night
actually.
because of summer. Well, it's after sundown, so
That's a
maybe
good
that's not a problem.
example. I just wonder I wonder if the bylaw subcommittee might give any thought to adjourning to a date certain at the same time and same place, and that way town meeting does have the ability to specify. In fact, the Board of Selectmen's office could reserve the auditorium or the gym for multiple dates. And that's another situation if the gym wasn't available that next day or what have you.
But,
So
but
I don't-
isn't the Tuesday date certain? I mean, if it doesn't that. I mean, if it was February, January, I would understand we could have a snowstorm, ice storm, things of that nature. But we're talking almost the end of May. Unless we have a hurricane? And I mean, at that point in time, I know, you could definitely,
You can try it.
I don't know, I'm just
Try it.
throwing it out there. I don't know.
Well,
Okay.
I'm not sure that I feel strongly about that one. We, thank God, thank you, Randy, rarely have meetings, or
They
haven't
run-
thus
yeah.
far,
And
that
again,
have
this,
extended past midnight.
and this is only if the town is unwilling to extend
Right.
beyond midnight on those occasions.
And so I guess the question would be, then it makes you think, what happened within that meeting that business couldn't conclude by midnight, and is 24 hours enough? Because actually, at that point, it's far less than 24 hours. It's more like 18. So I don't know. Maybe you want 2 days. But I don't, at that point, it's
Yeah.
back to what Margaret was saying, which is a little bit of flexibility might allow for the fact that this is rare to begin with to account for the rarity that required extra time.
I mean, you could easily go to
What
Wednesday.
does the town of Holden do, because they do run multiple nights? What do they have in their bylaws?
I don't know.
Good
So
question.
before Framingham became a city, it was running multiple nights, as much as 4, and there are several other communities that do that too. Their schedules are very specific about which items are considered on which nights.
But where Holden doesn't run
Yeah, I don't know.
tandem nights all the time, but they have, in my tenure of being moderator, they have run
Yeah.
multiple nights. What does their bylaws say? That may be a suggestion of
That's
something.
a fair question, something we can look at.
Or you could just leave it up to the moderator to pick a night.
Currently, the current bylaw reads, 1 week?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So it was already a
Yeah,
set time.
it
It was
was.
a week.
That gives you enough flexibility right there, within a week.
No, you can't do that. It has to be a date certain.
It does have to be a date certain.
It's not allowed to be whatever you feel like. So,
No, meaning for the town to decide as a whole, as a body? For those that are at the meeting?
right.
Okay. All right.
Dick, you taking notes so we can do this on,
I drew.
On next Wednesday? There, I believe that is the most controversial one of the bunch.
All right.
Oops. Unless I'm mistaken, and I might be, but I don't think I am. What's next is accounting and collecting, which is among other things, a renaming of something of a bylaw that was called financial affairs.
Okay.
As part of the codification, we're moving things into chapters, and the chapter is called Financial Affairs, and this bylaw in toto deals with accounting and collecting only, and so we thought the rename to be appropriate. What's important here is, that's all minor stuff, is Section 6. Section 6 was attempted last year?
November 2016.
November 2016 was when it was attempted before and passed. And then the Attorney General got hold of it and said, no, strike. There are things the Attorney General did not like about that. So this is nothing more than doing it again with language we believe the Attorney General will like.
Okay.
The Attorney General rejected this or disapproved it because it was the bylaw that was approved back in 2016 lacked specific dollars, and there was something else.
Terms.
Yes, terms. So basically, the bylaw had been written to reflect statute, where statute said up to X term, and the bylaw was written exactly like that, but the Attorney General said, no, you can't write your bylaw exactly like that. You have to specify the term. The statute allows you that flexibility, but the town must
The Attorney
specify.
General's notice, and in fact, they have a very good guidance notice about it as well, indicates that the treasurer collector is not allowed to have flexibility or leeway. You have to spell it out, what everyone, the agreements anyone is allowed to enter, and they all must be absolutely consistently applied.
Your town meeting binder has the markups of all these, okay.
And so, this is the result of the work between myself and the treasurer collector to generate language that meets the requirements of the Attorney General, gives the treasurer the flexibility that she believes she needs, and allows her to enter into the agreements.
Okay.
Other questions?
Just on the notes for this one, Anita. The amendment that was approved by the Attorney General, is it appropriate to add a note that a portion was not approved, or you don't typically add that?
The entire portion wasn't approved.
So when I'm,
They didn't approve any of it.
Right. So we attempted to amend, and the town voted to amend, but
Right.
this does not exist in our current bylaw because the Attorney General completely rejected it.
right, this is really just an editing notes thing. If you go to the very bottom
Yes.
of this one, so, see?
So you would like us to add that not only did we amend section 4 title, but we tried to pass?
That was a question.
Yeah.
Do we typically add in the amendment rejected? Because it was voted at town meeting, right? So we have the records in our town meeting minutes.
Yeah, this actually says that it was approved by the
Yeah.
Attorney General.
What was approved was just the change of the title.
Right. That's what I was,
The
Oh.
only, that was the only portion that was.
That's gonna create confusion down the road, I
Yeah,
think.
because it's not referenced. Maybe clarification on that.
That's all it is.
We can put those notes in.
yeah,
Fortunately, this is editorial, so we can do whatever we
Right.
want with it.
but it'll help to answer exactly what you just brought up, which is,
Yes.
by the way, we tried this before, and we're, yeah.
Other questions? Moving on then to stretch energy code. There was a very nice presentation at was it the last meeting? I believe it was the last meeting about stretch energy code.
Did we do it?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go into that again unless somebody would really like me to. This is the bylaw that sets us up for two things: to force all the buildings to meet stretch energy code, and number two, to meet one of the requirements for green community.
What is the benefit of meeting green community?
We are eligible to receive a number of grants, and Margaret can speak to that much better than I can,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
in general, you have access to more grants and more resources.
But do we leave anything on the table as regards to local controller authorization? Because we're now signing off on the state's requirements?
Did you miss the meeting when he was
I
here?
did.
Okay, so basically
did.
if I remember correctly, Margaret, you can correct me. When the stretch code was first adopted, it was a big stretch. And there were a lot of concerns about increasing costs that would then be passed over to the purchaser. What's happened now is that the stretch code's not that much of a stretch anymore. And when he showed us the spreadsheet of the math of how much a buyer is ultimately going to save, so they will have spent up front on XYZ, and then in some cases they get to choose from a menu option of items. Those savings in energy costs will then bear out for that homeowner over time. So in addition to...
There's a famous saying from Ronald Reagan, "I'm from the government, I'm here to help." And I don't know that that always paints true, especially on some of these type of programs. Dick, what's your thoughts? I see you shaking your head.
No, it's just when a public comment, I pulled out the carrot and dangled it in front of you.
That's right.
Be careful of the string that's attached to the
I-
carrot.
The state does have lots of those, but yeah, Sheila, you're accurate. There was a time when the stretch energy code far exceeded the standard building code. And now there's very little in the stretch code that exceeds the newest building codes. There are some things. The biggest thing with green communities is that you need to contractors need to generate a compliance report. They need to show that the buildings they're building meet the stretch energy code, that they're well air sealed and they have efficient components. The town benefits from green communities in that it can receive, in year one it would receive, $140,000, and then can apply for competitive grants to do energy efficiency projects in any town buildings.
Okay, so all, to that point, so all the builders in town would have to submit a report to the state based on the current code
No,
or the stretch code?
they wouldn't have to submit a report to the state. The report would only be submitted to the building commissioner.
The building commissioner receives more paperwork is basically what this means.
Yes, and the building commissioner, we did ask this question, the building commission, if the building commissioner was required to do more work, and the answer to that was no. He's just receiving these reports from the HERS rater.
So what's the
They-
you would just generate paper for the sake of generating paper?
They already do these tests. They're just doing the tests at a different
No,
level.
I understand, but all this paper that's now gonna be gathered by the building commissioner, that we have to store.
And in exchange, we get cash. Seems like a good trade-off.
I don't know. When you get cash, there's a lot of strings attached to it, so I don't know if, to me, I think it needs a little deeper venting, personally, but.
We're going to actually be able to have DOER attend our town meeting and speak to any questions on the stretch code itself.
Did he
Two members of, he would be able to come, or Kelly would be able to come, either representative from DOER.
Did he send us that presentation from that night? The slides? It was
don't-
very good.
Yeah, I don't know that we have it, but we can get it.
You know, and I think to Mike's point, he proactively addressed at least three of the concerns you brought up before he
Okay.
even started. So
Okay.
it was very informative.
I'll go
actually.
back and take a look at the film.
And one other thing, also, you may opt out at any time.
Yes, you can opt out.
So we're not locked into it for any particular time?
Well, you have to repeal the bylaw.
Yes.
That's it.
All right. Not as easy as that.
Well, I mean, I don't mean to make it sound like it is no work at all, but I also suspect that if it came to that, repeal would not be a particularly large burden. That's a feeling that I don't have facts on.
I don't have an issue with energy efficiency. I just have an issue with, the hidden fine print that comes along with a lot of these state regulations.
There is a very important piece of fine print in our bylaw that I'm going to now make the mistake and point out to you.
Okay.
Including any future additions, whatever changes they make to the law or to the regulations, we have not today adopted no matter what they do. This is an area of concern. I don't believe that it's a particularly large area of concern because of how stretch code is not making leaps and bounds above usual normal building code. But if there's a risk, that's where the town, that's where it lives.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you.
Welcome.
Appreciate you pointing that out.
I mean, I would argue that that's less a risk and more of a protection. If something comes to pass that the Board of Building Regulations and Standards decides this is a safety concern that we've just discovered and it was important enough to add to their regulations, it would be important for our bylaw to reflect the newest edition. I mean, we know that, right? Will it has it in his budget every few years. There's always a new edition coming out, right? Is it every 3 or 4?
Two.
Oh, yeah,
Building codes.
one just came out.
One
It's
just
every
came
3.
out.
3 years?
Well, every
Building
3
code?
years stretch gets
Yeah.
revised.
No, the building code.
But the
would
building
be
code I
corrected.
thought was on the same cycle.
Is it?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
That could be corrected, but I thought it was 2. Or is that the fire code? Yes, Dick.
Right up near the very top, it is updated every 3-year cycle, so.
Okay,
Thank
there it is. Thank you.
Now, we don't get to pull out including the future additions from this bylaw, even if we wanted to. This bylaw is very strictly worded.
Understood.
So if anybody tries to amend that off the floor and we pass it, we will have a bylaw that doesn't do us any good. So this is the new one. The others are all amendments. Are there other questions I can answer for you?
The membership requirement one was just.
Oh, I missed that. I apologize. Let me shoot back to that one. So this is the amendment to the one line, you must be a resident of the town. This may tickle your memory cells back in the back because we brought something like this before you last year. And there was a lot of language in that edition to allow people who are not registered voters of the town, who are registered voters elsewhere, to serve on committees. This removes all of that. It really is simply, if you're going to serve on a committee, you need to be a registered voter. And for town officials, they don't have to be registered voters to serve on committees. Say the solar committee. And Margaret and Gary.
Should there be any language in there? What happens if you own a piece of property in town, but you're registered in a neighboring town?
Then you are not a registered voter in this town, and you're not eligible.
You can own the property, but you're not
Right.
domiciled.
It's where you're domiciled, it's where you are registered, basically, to vote.
Just like paying taxes on your vehicle, it's wherever you domicile the vehicle,
Right.
you pay the excise tax.
I got one big one for you.
Sure.
So our short one-liner included serving on a town board or committee. Your changes don't include any boards. It only references appointed. So you've taken out
appoint all
anybody
boards.
elected.
Elected, you have to be.
You have,
Yeah,
right.
it's already,
I'm just,
yeah.
it came out,
this,
it
by the
came
way,
out of the membership requirement.
This is what came out of legal review last year.
All right.
Because I
And
think
she's
the other
one,
ones are given.
and frankly, the lawyer's the one who changed it from committees, commissions,
Oh, she
councils,
did.
all that to multiple member bodies.
She did.
Because the understanding was that elected officials were covered
Already.
elsewhere.
Yes,
Anita, is that?
that's what I'm hearing from Anita.
By statute, they,
Right.
in order to be elected.
Eligible to
Yeah.
be elected. Okay.
Questions on this last one? Other questions? Going once, going twice, hearing none.
Maybe later?
Thanks.
Thank you very much for your
Can
time.
I get a motion to place these bylaws on the town meeting warrant,
Subject to legal review.
subject to legal review?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
I lost where I'm at. Besides here.
Suddenly feels darker in here.
I just turned that off.
Oh, I know.
Right.
So Fred didn't come in. Fred Gallen? Want to save that for next meeting, please? Huh? Or does Fred have to be here to get him appointed, to get him started?
Oh, he's not going to be, he's just an appointment to make a presentation on stormwater. So
All
he's,
right,
yeah.
never mind. Thought we were appointing him first. So we're gonna go to Margaret.
My updates can actually wait till town meeting review. How's that? Town meeting warrant review.
Okay.
Because they pertain to budget and capital, so. I think we have a couple of people here on Bear Hill. Is that, am I guessing right?
Where we got Bear Hill somewhere?
Right.
Right
there.
here.
Yes.
For the new business, Bear Hill request for Bear Hill street layout.
So, we have received, I believe the same or similar requests, from, Blair Builders, for the board's consideration in laying out Grizzly Drive, Arrowhead Drive, Cleveland Circle, Horizon Road, and another portion of Grizzly Drive. So in each of the board's agenda packets, you have the timeline for street acceptance. What's requested for tonight is that the board, well, what's expected tonight would be that the board would state its intention to lay out the way and refer any of these petitions, these requests that were received on April 4th, to the Planning Board, DPW, Fire, and Police Departments for their review and comment.
Okay.
That has already been done. When we received them, we forwarded them. So all of those town officials and bodies received them.
So you need a motion to move it to those departments?
Nope, not a motion to move it to those departments because that's been done, but a motion to state a vote of the board to state its intention to lay out the ways, and that would be on April 23rd.
Okay. So move subject to feedback from the numerous boards.
Do I have a
I did, the boards, I think, are all aware that the board would be looking for updates on completion of any work on those roads before
Right.
the board votes to lay out the way.
That's why I made the motion subject
Do you
to,
have?
Where's
do you
the,
have-
can I have that?
Oh, you don't have a copy?
I don't know, I might.
which is why I made the motion subject to that feedback.
Yeah.
Okay, so you, this is,
What's the matter,
So
Dick?
this
You
is
don't want
on-
it subject to? Just want to, just move on the motion?
well, this is on your meeting agenda tomorrow.
It is.
Yeah.
I don't
So
like the way it's written.
what is,
You already don't like it.
I personally, I'm speaking for myself, and
What-
it says
what's written, Dick?
for acceptance of Arrowhead Way, Britnell, whatever it was down there. That's the whole subdivision that's not even built. It's the whole Bear Hill 2 that isn't built yet. It's not even, the road isn't even put in, and yet we're to accept it?
Well-
That's not the way it.
The letter says, I am advised that the street are now nearly completed and will shortly be ready. No?
That's why the board needs this information from local boards, committees, and officials.
And that'll be in your report.
Pardon?
And that'll be in your report.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so to Mike's point, an intention to lay out tonight, and on 4/23, assuming everything were correct, we would lay out.
Correct.
Yes, and there are placeholders on the town meeting warrant if the board actually does take that action.
Okay.
So I have a motion, did I get a second on that?
Yes.
All those in
Subject.
favor of whatever Mike said.
That's the board's intent to lay out the way on
Yes.
April 23rd.
So,
Pantos, aye. Just for the record,
Aye.
clock eye.
just so you have the
So-
vote.
Would you like to say something while you're here?
No, we just kind of wanted to see what was going to happen. So now all the butters will be notified that at the next meeting,
Yep.
it will all be presented. And
Yep.
Thank you.
Did you give them all three of them, Sheila?
I did.
Oh, all right, good, okay.
All right. Next.
Proposal for FinCom, Board of Selectmen, and CIPC Roundtable.
So Sheila approached me with a suggestion that the board, CIPC, and FinCom hold a roundtable to discuss where the town has been, mostly focusing on finances, obviously, where the town has been with regard to finances, where we are now with regard to finances and the provision of town services, and where we look to go in the future. I ran the idea by Skip, who suggested that we could potentially do something on Wednesday, April 25th. And I have not sent out invitations yet for this, but I have made CIPC and FinCom aware of this joint roundtable discussion to talk about
I'm good with that.
past, present, and future. Sheila, do you have anything to add to?
You know, we're in an, I think what brought this up, as Margaret well knows, is that, you know, the Finance Committee, you know, again, they're in the midst of going through all of their budget preparation talks. They're meeting with all of the department heads, and we are, at least for this board, I mean, Skip and I longest, are in an unusual year where we're close to having what we need under the levy to fund things. It's not ideal by any stretch, but we're close. That is likely not going to be the case in future years. It's unusual that it's happening this year. And we haven't all sat down, the three of those groups, I'm looking at you, to really take a big picture, high level look back as to where we were, where stabilization has been for the past decade plus, where it's headed, where we are with our capital planning. Where are we in terms of looking as a whole at something like the senior center, and where we're going to have to look at when it comes to our levy. We've got some changes coming up in our debts. Some of the things are going to be coming off, and I think it's probably time at this point for us to all sit down and realize how much progress we made in some difficult times, and make sure we're all headed in the right direction and where our big projects are going to be in the next few years.
Now, to your comments, the information I received from FinCom, based on the meeting you attended with Margaret on Thursday, FinCom and us are on two separate pages, that they're totally in disagreement. And also, from what I understand it, and I know I've voiced my concerns to Margaret, that the cruiser and the ambulance, that we've established a funding pattern for, that we've tried for quite a while, and now being taken off the budget cycle in order to fund schools because the school requirement came in high, and now we're going to go to a override because they're emergency vehicles, which the general public usually will vote for that. So why are we putting it out to the public to vote on items that should already be in the budget, that it's needed by the PD and the fire, and that they were laid by FinCom in past, as well as everyone else, that they be budgeted, and we're not really going out to the public to fund the items that really need to be funded. To me, it's smoke and mirrors. And I think we really need to represent to the general public a clear picture, especially if we're not on the same page with FinCom.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that impression is exactly why we need to have this meeting. I don't know that, I left that meeting on Thursday thinking we were certainly in a better place. And, you know, shame on me, I haven't been to every single FinCom meeting. Skip, I think you've been to almost all of them.
That I have.
And, you know, Mike, to your point, I think we can use the police cruiser, the chief stepped out. I think we can use the police cruiser as a perfect example of what you're talking about, because I think we all agree. And we've all agreed for a decade, and I think we were all on the same page in FinCom, that a cruiser, in a perfect world, in a lot of communities, is in your general budget.
And it is, and it
Under your
still
levy.
is.
And it still is.
The cruiser, one cruiser still
Right.
is, yep.
And obviously, you've
That's
been
not
here
changing.
too. We've had many years where we had to fund it under a debt exclusion or worst
Right.
case scenario, and I think you would remember this the best, where we would fund it as a lease and we would wait until we hopefully had free cash come up in the fall in
Right,
order
and
to
that's
pay off
what
that
the
lease.
cycle we're
So-
trying to break for many, many
Absolutely.
years, and
Absolutely,
why are
and
we
so-
going back on that?
And if I may, so if what Margaret was bringing up on Thursday that I thought was brilliant, I know you had talked about this with both of the public safety departments, was that capital, tell me again, because I can't find it.
Yeah, it's a special stabilization override
Yeah.
for the future, and I don't have, or do
But
I
I?
don't
still
think
a
it's in here.
tax override that we're presenting to the
It is. It's-
voters.
But to fund specific purposes in the future. So
Right.
this is not, it's not a general override, it's not an override for operations, it's a special override that's structured kind of like a debt exclusion and an override to fund specific items. So for example,
I got that, but
The fire chief
again,
wants to
back to my
replace-
point, and I'm sorry I'm disturbed, I'll let you finish. Why are we putting those specific items that should be budgetary items for overrides?
Okay.
I don't get that.
Debt
So
exclusions.
those are
Debt
two
exclusions.
items that didn't exist prior to this year, and I can tell you with great emphasis that I am concerned. I'm still concerned that if those items, in addition to $200,000 more dollars in other items and services on the budget, if an override was to have been presented and it failed, those items would likely have been dropped. I truly believe, and I've said to both chiefs who are not here right now, that first of all, an ambulance is needed urgently. We have a 2008 ambulance. We need to be able to fund it. Had that item or the cruiser been dropped,
That's not accurate. Our ambulance is 5 years old.
no, we have a 2008 ambulance.
That's the 10-year-old, that's the backup.
That it's the backup, but we're looking now to replace that backup and have the 2004 start being the backup. The fire chief wants to get on a 5-year ambulance replacement cycle.
We've talked about that for the last 7 years.
Okay.
That should be a 5-year replacement. The primary unit goes
But it's 10.
online every 5,
Right.
and that the backup is the 5-year-old that goes in for the next 5
Okay.
years, and we keep cycling them out. And I know we've had that conversation.
Right, and it's 10. The old one is 10 years
Will
old.
be 10
now.
years old, yes.
Yeah, it's 10 years old. It's a 2008.
Right.
So when I took these were both new initiatives, the additional cruiser lease, so a second cruiser lease, not the original one, a second cruiser lease plus an ambulance when they were put on the budget. I felt that with the new staffing at the police department, and the chief had explained that the new cruiser was an urgent need, the fire chief has explained that the ambulance is an urgent need, and if there's any possibility that our budget's going to be reduced because of a vote on the higher school, the district's requested operations assessment, at the very least, those two items could potentially be delayed until fall or until a coming year.
Again,
This
why would we
provides
go,
some.
even if we don't have the funding, if we have a funding issue, why would we head for those two particular items that we know that we have a public safety need?
Because
Again.
there, well, because there
Why wouldn't
is
we
some
go other
assurance,
stuff?
because there is some assurance that those items would be funded, and they are public safety capital items. They are public safety equipment.
To me, I think we're, again, I'll state it for the record, playing smoke and mirrors, and we're not presenting a true picture to the general public, because those two items should be part of the budget cycle, just like anything else, and we should not be going, if we have a budgetary shortfall on some items, we should go towards that, and focus
So-
on the budgetary shortfall, not the items that we know are needed and are part of the operation of the
May I?
town.
May I?
Yeah.
You've used smoke and mirrors before, and this is the exact opposite of smoke and mirrors. This is as transparent a process as we can make for our residents. And for all of the years where
No, what
we
you're
have
doing,
had
Sheila, is
to,
you're
excuse me, may I finish?
baiting.
For all the years where we have had to request an override in the face of extreme cuts to municipal services, in this case, in our year, in this budget book, we have a growth budget. We're funding a planner. We have 2 new police officers. They're getting a dog. We're moving in the right direction. Our stabilization looks good. We've put money into all of our savings accounts. We're within striking distance of a budget. And so to turn to our residents and say, we'd like to increase your taxes permanently in a year where we don't have to, that's what's disingenuous. And I don't disagree with you that ultimately, long term, when this town really is back on its feet, a police cruiser can go under the levy. But we're still up against our levy ceiling, and this is the right way to fund
I disagree.
it.
The only issue that we keep having year in year, and this is the only thing that's going to be unchallenged funding, is the commitments that you have for funding the school. The public safety, the equipment that needs to be funded should never be tampered with or asked to be
And that's-
overridden.
Ergo Margaret's
because-
plan, if you were listening to it. That's exactly what that would do.
Yeah, I don't know if I explained it fully, but I feel that there was too much risk, $70,000 worth of risk and equipment risk in the budget. And these were new items added only this year, in requests this year. These weren't something that is being removed after having been on the budget a long time. I completely understand that if our revenues could support large capital items on the budget, absolutely. In fact, I was in favor of putting an ambulance lease on the budget right to begin with, but it was $70,000. We have a $285,000 gap, and we still have
Because
more to
of-
cut.
The gap is from school funding, is it not?
I mean, you could argue that it's
Well,
cumulative.
no. Again,
school
here's where I'm
funding.
saying smoke and mirrors. Let's call it what it is. The shortfall is from the request that's being made by the school.
Right. If
That's
we
where
were
we're
to-
going short. We've been doing this for the last 8 years that I've been on this board. The school request has been higher. And that's fine. I understand it. But let's address it for what it is. Let's not try to fund the school budget and say we can't fund the ambulance and we can't find money for the cruiser.
As somebody who's been,
That's where I get very irritated, because we've worked so hard for so long to get those into a budget cycle, and now we're taking them out and looking for an override to fund them.
as somebody who's been on school committees for as long as you have been, I can't believe I am hearing this from you. The Bay Path budget went up over 13%. Now, they prepared us for it, we were well aware of it, and no one is questioning that the budget went up, but it did. It went up over 13%. The budgets that were requested by our departments were 3.5. The budget that came to us from the district was 4.2 from the Wachusett district. Now, Holden got hit hard this year.
Yeah.
Holden got hit much harder, over 7%.
Right.
And their plan right now, as far as we've heard, is to go into town meeting, present the budget, and then make a change on the floor. That's a possibility, and it came up Thursday.
The Finance Committee voted on Thursday night to present the Wachusett operations assessment and immediately present an amendment down, a reduced
I didn't think they took a vote, from what I understand.
Didn't they vote?
They took a formal vote? Because I
Yes.
was told that their vote did not take place.
Yeah, it took place.
Okay.
Because they needed
I
to
was there, I
decide,
thought it did. Yeah.
they needed to
Okay.
decide what to recommend to us to put on the ballot.
Skip, you gotta.
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
Santos.
So will you please
sit-
introduce yourself for the cameras?
Oh.
You don't have to go over to there because there's swivel
Harry
around there.
Sackman, 13 Beechwood Drive, Rutland, Mass. I guess I'm hearing a lot, so I want to clarify for myself. Are you saying, Mike, that you want to have all the equipment, the ambulance stuff stay here, and if there's any money that needs to be funded, then say the school, that should be done with an override, or that should be done, not the equipment? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Correct.
Oh,
Because that's
okay.
what we had talked about with Joe Becker, when he was on the board here, with the previous chief, both chiefs, for example. We had established with your team that there would be a 5-year cycle that you reviewed and approved with Addison and others that were on the committee for replacement of the ambulance, so that there's always constantly a brand-new unit, no more than 5 years old, and then the primary unit would move to the second position. And the same thing, that every year, there would be a new cruiser coming online, front line unit, so that we didn't have the expenses that we spent on maintenance on the old Crown Vic, so that we continually cycle out the oldest unit. That's what I was referring to.
Mike, it has become clear across the state that it is the foundation formula that is the issue. And for as long as I've been doing
Well,
this.
for us, we even have an issue with regional transportation.
And regional
That's
transportation.
the biggest one.
And for as long as we've been doing this, we have been fighting to try to find balance in what to fund under what because of our massive debt. We're sitting in a building that's under our levy, a 40-year loan that was placed under our levy. We now have an opportunity once in the over a decade of time that this has been an issue for us to say to our residents, we're close enough. We can give you a break. We don't need to raise your taxes permanently. We're going to ask you to fund 2 pieces of equipment that we know everybody in town wants and needs, and we can very transparently tell you, here's what it's going to cost you, and when that cost is over, your tax will come off the rolls. It's a debt exclusion. This is our one shot. We're not going to have that shot next year because there are more houses going up, and our bill is going to go
So
up
what are you
next
gonna
year.
do in the next
So-
5 years when we need to replace that next ambulance?
So,
Margaret's
yeah,
program.
there's this mechanism that I started to explain earlier would be able to specifically fund replacement programs. It could fund an annual cruiser replacement program. It could fund a 5-year ambulance replacement program forevermore. And I can explain it more at your next meeting. But this is temporary. And I can tell you that I feel, and I know the chiefs could speak to this, they feel they need the equipment. And with a $285,000 gap that we are going to have to present contingent reductions at town meeting for, I thought the risk was too great that we could lose not only services but the equipment as well. I don't feel, I'm sorry that you feel that it's smoke and mirrors. I feel it's transparent. I feel the residents do understand the need for the equipment. The equipment is certainly needed, and I think that this was probably the lower risk than leaving it on budget, subject to cuts. It's a great new initiative, both items, having a second cruiser added to the budget, having an ambulance added to the operating budget. Those were really strong. They're great new initiatives, but they weren't something that had carried, and they cost $70,000. It's a big amount of money to not have the revenues to support that.
So let's get back on, we're started with the proposal of a round table. We got way off of it.
Oh, I thought we were already on budget.
No, we're not. We were talking about the round table. And you had proposed a date.
April 25th, Wednesday, April 25th is the proposed date.
Okay. So we're gonna go back up to the Wachusett Solar Pilot Agreement. So that's,
So this is a new pilot agreement for the board's execution. This is a pilot agreement
Chairman?
for...
yes,
Sorry. Through the chair?
yes, sir.
Question, Margaret,
Yes.
Harry Seckman, 13 Beechwood Drive, Rutland, Mass. Has the agenda been laid out yet as to what the roundtable will look like?
Nothing is.
Just the
nothing
date's
is-
been
Just the
set?
date.
I just want my committee to know.
I will
'Cause
keep you
we want you to, we would like your committee to have
We've
some
already
input.
agreed to be there. We have.
Okay.
We
good.
talked about that last week.
Thank you.
So next up is building a 2.6 megawatt solar farm on Wachusett Street. The pilot agreement, which was negotiated, would be $31,200 a year for the 20 years of the project. The solar committee negotiated that, and the agreement has undergone legal review on both sides, and it's been signed by Nexam.
Motion to sign.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, we got a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And a portion of that is already calculated in our estimated local receipts for next year.
When will they start?
I hope so.
Through the chair, I thought that was going to my account.
You didn't mention it in open session, so you lost your chance.
Is there an escalator on that? Or is it just a
I
flat?
believe, actually, I don't think
Thought it
there
was
is an
flat.
escalator on this one. Is there an escalator? Is there an escalator?
Should be an escalator. Everything goes up in life.
I don't think this one was negotiated with an escalator. We have others that were.
Yeah, most do have escalators, you're right.
No
Everyone
escalator
should
on
go
this one.
buy 61A property, don't you think, 61A? That's 61A property, that should go into the 61A account.
The rollback.
That's a good try, Randy.
I agree.
Surprised Mr.
Yeah,
Williams
open
didn't say
space.
that.
I'm sorry.
There's an adjustment calculation if improvements are made, but I don't see an escalator.
In most solar, whether you're negotiating rent or taxes, I thought should be escalators in there.
We do have some in some of our
At
pilot
minimum of
agreements.
2%.
A CPI?
Mine, the one that I've worked in the past has always been every year.
So now we're gonna finally get to old business. Yeah.
So are we moving forward on this, or are we kicking it back?
The pilot agreement? The pilot agreement has been negotiated. There is no escalator in this pilot agreement.
Right, so the question is on this pilot, do we accept it, or do we kick it back for renegotiation since there's no escalator on it? I think that's the question that's being asked.
Negotiations.
I'm sorry?
It wasn't part of the negotiations. In fact, we had to, you know, if you were there for negotiations, yeah, but we had to, due to the change in the SMART program at the state, we had to work at getting Nexamp even up to this amount.
So the state program hurt us? So that we
Yes, the
couldn't,
state program is driving.
State program
solar
has reduced the benefits to
Mm.
the developers, yes.
wow.
Yep, driving them right down the tube.
It's not the
I'm
Green
here from
Communities
the gov-
program,
I'm
it's
here
another
from
one.
the government,
the
I'm here to
SMART
help,
program.
right?
Yep.
We're from the government, we're here to help.
I can verify what they're doing.
Wow.
So, we had some correspondence from DCR. We haven't got anything back from them yet. We wrote a letter to them specifying that we needed more than what they were asking for due to a piece of property over on the other side of Rutland.
Wouldn't the property tax payment often, I mean, in a private transaction, often the property tax payment would be part of the sale transaction? Is
Yeah,
there,
but no, you
But it-
gotta
but
pay
it's
the
already-
taxes before you sell it.
before the sale is completed?
Yeah.
Right. But
Isn't that part of the closing?
We're
No,
trying,
with-
we're,
With
We're-
the state. it has
we're
be
trying to
done
get
ahead.
acknowledgement from DCR that they are aware that the
Oh, okay.
owners have back taxes, and we have not received that
All
yet.
right.
And just to let you know, I asked also, I have a meeting Thursday night, so it will be brought up again.
All right, thank you, Dick. Appointment reservations, policy revisions. What do we know about that?
Appointment policy revisions. That's old business. It's what? Oh, we're gonna hold that for
Oh,
tonight.
all right,
And the anti-idling policy as well.
okay, we'll hold that one too. Special town meeting, let's go election ballot questions. How will you do that?
So the board voted at the last meeting to set the debt exclusion questions and the capital exclusion question. The town clerk must receive written notice of the ballot questions by tonight. You should have copies of the ballot questions in here with the tax rate impacts. Okay, good. So you should have copies. There were two draft ballot two debt exclusion questions initially. They can be combined into a single debt exclusion question. So you would have one debt exclusion question for the ambulance and cruiser and one capital exclusion question for Wachusett Turf Field. Tax rate impacts. I can tell you the tax rate impacts as soon as I get my sheet out.
$21.81 for $250,000 valuation.
This, under
Okay.
the recent evaluation, most average homes are over 300 in the town of Rutland, so.
Yes.
That 250 is meaningless at this point in time, not a real number.
Yes, and and we can do scenarios for different priced homes. The tax rate impact is 0.0872 on a $310,000 debt exclusion for the ambulance and cruiser. And on the turf field replacement, which is proposed as a capital expenditure exclusion, is 17 cents on the 1,000.
For what period of time?
1 year, that's a capital exclusion,
For both?
just the turf field.
And how about for the,
Those are debt exclusions, so those will be carried. The cruiser is only 3 years, the ambulance is 5. So these questions were written in accordance with DLS guidelines. And I just need to know, I need to give the clerk written notice. I need to know what you want to do with the debt exclusion questions at this point, separate or combined.
I'd say we lay it out and let the people vote what they feel they need to. Give them the choices.
Keep it separate is what you're saying.
Yeah, give them their choice.
I'd like to combine them. I don't like the idea of pitting two public safety departments against each other, and
I
don't
would
think
agree
that-
with that. You shouldn't pit them against each other. It should be done as a whole.
But aren't we denying the voters the right to pick what they want to fund or what they don't want to fund? Just asking the question. It's not a matter of pitting somebody against each other. It's about transparency.
all of the information will be there, separated out. So this isn't about transparency, but we've done this before where we had menu option choices for overrides and debt exclusions. In this case, we'd have 3 on here. We already have to explain debt exclusion versus capital exclusion to people who haven't seen a capital exclusion very often. And actually, I can't remember the last one we ever did. And it hasn't worked well because it hasn't worked well. I would think making sure that the voters understand and are clear on what they are voting for is the transparent way to go.
Oh, Anita, you're here. That's all.
So we need a motion to do whatever you all would like to do.
I'd like to make a motion to place a single debt exclusion question to include both the bond issued to purchase and equip a new ambulance and a bond issued to purchase and equip a new cruiser.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
No.
All those opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries.
And then the capital exclusion you've already acted on, so that's it. Okay, so that's it for ballot questions.
Special town,
Town meeting. Okay. Special town meeting. Snow and ice deficit would be first up on the special town meeting warrant again. As of March 26th, the snow and ice deficit was $147,779.86. And this is only to place the articles. We're looking at a combination of funding from free cash and appropriation transfers. Do you want to go through all the articles and move to place, or do you want to
On the special, yeah.
Okay, actually, this is your first review of the warrant. You don't even have to take action tonight. You could do all actions on the 23rd. So this is just to familiarize yourself.
Let's get some of them out of the way if we're gonna go through them. Motion to place article snow and ice.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I mean, I would make a motion to place the rest. I think we've all
Okay.
gone through, right?
Okay.
Steph?
All right, so I'll just explain the others then? Do you want to do that, or do you want to just go through?
Will this be posted on the town website?
It will, once we start filling in, once we fill in the numbers, yes,
Then
absolutely.
if that's the case, as long as there's visibility to the voters. I mean, if you want to just give a brief highlight
Yep.
on each one,
Yep.
so that way we can move forward.
Yep, there are two articles for unpaid bills of prior fiscal years. The first is a Verizon landline telephone service charge that apparently goes back several years. It's a lingering amount that's been carried on the invoices, so I'm working on getting the exact number. It's $2,000-something, likely to be an appropriation transfer. The next is on the sewer enterprise. It's City of Worcester sewer transport charges for the end, for April 2017 to June 2017, where the invoice was received this year. And so it amounted to, once it hit September 30th, it amounted to an unpaid bill of a prior fiscal year, so that has to be voted at town meeting. Then there is a request.
Can I ask you a question, just
Sure.
FYI?
Yeah.
Why did it get tabled? Why did it not get paid?
I cannot answer that question. I have to find out when the invoice was actually received. I don't have a copy of the invoice,
right.
so I need to get
All
that. But it was for the transport charges for the last quarter of last year. Next is a sewer enterprise appropriation transfer. Gary's gonna be putting forth a request that the wastewater treatment plant feasibility study project balance be closed out. That project was actually completed in FY14, and this would transfer funding back into the sewer enterprise, and any remaining funds at the end of this fiscal year would revert to sewer free cash. The next is a paved walkway at Glenwood Elementary School. CIPC has recommended this. This is to make exterior improvements to the school. They will connect ADA compliant exits at the building. The path will be 460 feet long by 5 feet wide and extend out to the open area to the parking lot or main entrance to the school. This is going to be funded by transfers from other school projects. The next is library computers. The library has requested 3 new computers to provide the children's librarian, assistant library director, and the circulation desk with working computers. And then finally, the municipal parking area that Gary has discussed with the board prior to this meeting. LEM is going to be doing an in-kind work at that parking area, doing some excavation work. And this amount that would be transferred from the primary building account would fund the remainder of the construction of that lot. And that's it for special.
Make a motion to place the articles as presented with the appropriate additions.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Annual town meeting.
Wow.
Yes. Okay. The first several articles are standards. The annual reports of town officers and committee, fixing the compensation of elected officials, to defray the costs of Bay Path assessments, to defray the expenses of Wachusett's MLC, to defray the expenses of Wachusett's debt service assessment, to defray the expenses of Wachusett's transportation assessment, to defray the expenses of Wachusett's operations assessment. This is where the Finance Committee plans to present an amendment of a reduced amount after the main motion is presented. The next is to defray the expenses of municipal departments. If the article prior to this passes, the main motion passes, the town is going to have to have a list of contingent budget reductions totaling approximately $215,000. So there'll be a recommended budget column for municipal departments, and then there's going to be a reduced budget column for municipal departments. Next is defraying the expenses of Wachusett's debt service. Oh, I'm sorry, the town's debt service. This is taking care of all of our principal and interest, the annual debt service for the year. Next is the water enterprise funding, sewer enterprise funding, then cable access funding, then the capital budget, and you see the list of the capital items there. For the CIPC's information, the police cruiser is listed there, but it is noted that CIPC does not make a recommendation on that piece of equipment. So all the requested capital projects, we have the ambulance and cruiser, we have public safety roof repairs, library roof repairs, and in both cases, both roofs need to be redone. We have water filtration tank and media enterprise from the water enterprise account or water enterprise fund. And then we have potential grant funding for the fire department's command car 1. So those are the capital items listed under the capital budget, and all those items total $516,743.71.
So if the grant doesn't come through, that comes off?
It is, that's right. It's contingent on 100% grant funding, and I can note that in the summary below, but it's noted to be grant funded, yes.
Okay.
And CIPC voted it that way, I believe.
Voted as such. Yes, we did.
The next is in the fire department, collective bargaining agreement, the fire department's collective bargaining agreement, an additional complete set of turnout gear was negotiated for all the collective bargaining unit members. That totals $24,500. The next is an article that the board has discussed before, and it made it as far as town meeting, and then it didn't quite make it through, and that was a request again from Wachusett Greenways for $1,000 for maintenance and upkeep of the recreational paths. I don't know if the board wants to discuss that, but you can flag it if you'd like. The next is an article to fund the RDIC's site readiness activity project, or the projects at the Heights property, to fund engineering, site studies, marketing, legal, and other work required to prepare the Heights for site disposition and development. That's going to be funded from the sale of property Rutland Heights Reserve Fund. The next, fully funded from that. The next is, the Wachusett has a request for Rutland's portion of funding parking lot repairs at the Jefferson Early Childhood Center and the district office. Rutland's portion would be $11,525. That is proposed to be funded from an appropriation transfer from an existing school funding account from the Naquag Green Repair Project. CIPC has also voted that one. The next is the turf field replacement project, and that again is contingent on a passage of a capital outlay exclusion question, and that's Rutland's portion of that would be $148,320. The total project cost is $600,000. And then we have some standard consent articles with board's acceptance of grants, gifts, board's ability to or authority to enter into contracts exceeding 3 years, acceptance of Chapter 90 funds, the annual renewal of the revolving funds of the fiscal year spending limit on each of them. The next is a request that was submitted by the fire chief, EMD director, to accept this statute pertaining to public safety mutual aid agreements. You have a copy of the statute in your town meeting binders, and I would suggest you look at it. I have reached out to other cities and towns asking if they've had any experiences with this. There haven't been any negative experiences reported. The next is an article that is coming back again to enter into a lease agreement for Marshfield. I have prepared an RFP. It's going to legal, and the intent is to use Marshfield for the same purposes it's been used for, and the board would have the authority to enter into that lease agreement after the RFP is issued. The next are 5 bylaw proposals that you heard earlier this evening. And a copy of all those proposed bylaw amendments will be on file with the town clerk as soon as legal approves the language on those. The next is a citizen petition that was submitted to accept the Chapter 4197A regarding police chiefs. It's the so-called strong chief statute. And the following article was submitted by the police chief. I think maybe because of a concern that the citizen petition was not worded in such a way that it would be accepted. I believe that it actually is.
I have my problem with this.
Okay.
Citizen petition was first, so it should go on as written, and we should not spend our legal money to put on what the chief requested. If the chief had came and asked us before we got the citizens petition to put on here, I could see us doing this.
Mr. Moderator, the motion under the article reads to allow the town of Rutland, Mass. To adopt Chapter 41, Section 97A, et cetera, et cetera. Can the motion under that article be worded slightly different to say, I move the town meeting vote to accept? Or is that a legal question?
It's out of my threshold.
Okay, we will check with legal.
I guess what I'm wondering, and Skip, remind me, I feel like this has come up before. We may have had citizen petitions, but then if our board had gone and placed our own articles, where of course we have more time than they have.
We would have not been, if we had been asked, it would have been different.
No,
If
I
somebody
agree.
came forward and said, hey, we want to put a petition on to make a strong chief.
I agreed.
All right?
Agreed. No, but we
I
weren't.
would have had no problem.
I don't
but
think this language is fatal to it. I just don't.
I don't either. I think it's just fine the way it's written.
I guess my question is, if there is a language concern and the citizen petitioner made a motion of no action, and then we went on to the police chief's request. No, I'm saying it could happen. That's what I'm suggesting.
That could potentially happen
Not
if
a-
both articles were here, yeah.
If both
Yeah.
articles in, that's why we're not going to
That
put
has
on
happened in the past.
the second one.
It looks like duplication of efforts.
Right.
Well,
Because, I mean, look at it, read it. Where's the difference? I don't see any difference to it.
I don't either. That's why it should be left as a citizen petition.
It references Chapter 41, it references Section 97A, MGL.
It's understood that the chapter has to be accepted, that the statute
Right.
has to be accepted by town meeting. So this is
Right.
why I don't think there's a fatal
There-
flaw in
Also-
the
Well,
language.
you're trying to get 2 bites of the apple here.
so
Right.
Nick
If you don't get it
left.
the first time, you try to get it the second one.
Well, that's fine, but I mean, Nick left. Why? I wonder what his concern was with this petition,
Yeah.
Well,
this
the
language.
I don't know.
You can hold this
Yeah.
till next meeting?
Yeah, I don't want to hold it at all.
Well, I think Skip.
If they came forward and asked the board, I can see, we've done it before. If they came and said something before, and the town spent the money and spent the time and everything else. to make
It's
sure it
not
was
even
legally
about
done.
time or money. I mean, the citizens petition reads very clearly, very similarly, that I don't see any differences that would change one over the other.
Yeah.
I mean, we're being asked to adopt Chapter 41, Section 97A. I don't see anything with a majority vote. I don't see anything different.
So I'd like a motion not to place that.
I'll make it.
Wouldn't we wait? We have time. Wouldn't we wait to just ask
No.
Nick?
No,
I don't have a
because you
problem
have
waiting.
you have to put on the citizen petition.
Yes, of
You
course.
have to do that.
Yep, absolutely.
So why, they're both
So
written
what's
the
the
same,
difference? Same language.
why are we gonna spend legal to review this? Tell me right or wrong, they're gonna review this whole document.
Right, and they'd pass right over the citizen petitions because
Yeah.
as long as it's worded
Right,
exactly as the
But they're
citizen.
gonna stop right here on this second one that Nick has
They'd review
permitted.
that.
Yeah, and go through that.
They would review it.
No. I'm No, I can't.
Honestly, Skip, I guess I don't look at this.
You don't look at it the same way I do.
Oh no, I might. I have questions both ways when it comes to strong chief, and obviously strong police chief's very different from strong fire. I guess my question is, I agree with you. It would have been maybe a better first step to have it be requested of the board, and then if the board said no, I would see the citizen petition. But that's not how they took it.
Nope.
They brought forward the citizen petition. So if they'd brought it to us, and we would have done it anyway.
But they didn't, Sheila.
Well,
They
but
didn't do that.
I understand, but that's not the fault of the chief. That's
No, that's
right?
not the fault of the
That has
chief.
nothing to do with the chief.
But no, I would like a motion to not place the chief's request for the strong chief.
Oh, just leave the citizens petition. The strong
Yeah,
chief question
yeah.
stays,
Yeah.
but under the citizens petition.
Yeah, under the citizen
Okay.
petition, not,
Can I?
So there's no duplication.
right.
I'm just going to throw something out. I don't. And again, Nick's not here, so we don't know why we don't know 100% why he put this on. But to your point of if they had asked us, is this our police chief
Well,
asking
but,
us?
But all that aside, look at the language. Where's the how is there any difference?
I agree. I don't know, and I'd like to just ask him before I take it off.
But
I don't see an issue with just asking them.
I do.
We don't have to, we
I
don't have
don't
to
e-
make
I
a
don't
decision
either, but-
tonight.
Do we have the time for this? We're not placing these tonight.
No,
So
no, you'll still have more work to do on the 23rd.
I still,
they're slightly different. One says accept.
One says
allow.
And there's only one mechanism to accept the statute, and that's by town meeting vote.
that's right.
So you're accepting the statute one way or the
I'm
other?
not suggesting one way or another. I have actually seen,
I don't-
I have actually seen this type of thing on warrants in previous towns where, never mind, we don't have to get into
No,
it.
we
It was
don't
actually
need
a
to get
zoning
into
bylaw amendment
Hey,
that
listen.
was not written properly.
And I'll voice my opinion later, myself, I'll voice it again. But let's move on then. Citizen petition for,
Okay.
building.
Okay, so, yeah, the town did receive another citizen petition to name the town building department office after longtime building inspector Harry Johnson.
What?
You have a motion on the floor with the chairman.
But it wasn't seconded.
That was never seconded. Sorry, Randy. Try.
Thanks for pointing it out.
That's why he's the moderator.
So, that's another citizen petition, and finally,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, finally, there's I have one placeholder here on the public way acceptances. There'll be multiple ones if the board actually lays out the roads. There'll be others added, but I wanted to be sure there was at least a placeholder here. And then finally, for the moderator to choose necessary town officers and committees.
They spelled Harry's name wrong.
Yeah.
Johnson, not Johnston.
Okay, so even on the petition, it's
Petition.
wrong.
It's a citizen
I
petition.
had to prepare it exactly as
That's
the
right.
petition read.
We can correct that on the floor. They can correct that on the floor, right?
Yeah.
It's exactly as written.
All right.
So that's it. And then at the end of your warrant, you have all the current year's officers to be elected. Thank you, Anita, for that update.
Margaret, what were our options with the early childhood center district
Options.
office
None.
parking
You
lot?
you could potentially have presented another capital outlay exclusion because it would qualify for that. That would be a one-year tax increase just to fund the parking lot. Is that what you're?
I'm asking why we have to pay it. Is it under the agreement with the amount of money that it is and the divisions because it's early childhood and district office?
It's a request no different than the turf field replacement.
It's just a request.
It's a request
I'm
that
just,
came in.
I'm just looking at this. We have money left in the Naquag Green Repair Project, and the Naquag parking lot and driveway is ridiculous. So, I don't know, why are we not?
So you might want to, you might want to consider,
Is there a requirement that all 5 towns pass that budget?
according to the district, they say yes.
Now, by the way, that parking lot is beyond. I'm not saying they don't need to have it
Oh, I
repaired.
know.
Well, I
just-
think a lot of the town parking lots are too, to be
They are,
fair.
they are.
It's kind of fun. It's almost like an amusement park ride driving into the back parking lot every morning.
But is that why the project budget of $50,000, which gets us over the new threshold,
That's over the threshold.
well over.
Yeah.
That's correct. So, does the board have any questions on any of these things? I know that you wanted to try to place as many articles as possible. If you'd like to hold specific ones,
Can I make
or all?
Can I make a motion to place the first page, which is, do you want me to list them? Annual reports, salaries and compensation, vocational, MLC, debt service. So that's everything on page 1.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
In that order, right? Articles 1, 2, okay.
Yeah. Make a motion to place page 2 where we've got transportation, operations, municipal departments, debt service for the town, water, sewer, and the cable advisory PEG article.
Should we wait till the meeting with FinCom on that?
Well, the language here
This is
is
only
for
the article.
operations,
That is
yeah,
only
that
the
won't
warrant,
change, so
not
that
the
there's
motion.
no amount there.
Second.
Did I have a second on that?
Motion sheet's gonna look different, though.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to place on page 3 the CIPC fiscal year 2019 budget, the fire department, turnout gear. I'll stop there.
So hold the other?
I would like to place the other. I will not make that motion.
Well,
I'll make the motion.
I would like to add to this fire chief's command car, this meet, all right?
Because we're going new and we're not using, asking for a used one like we did last time, save 25 grand?
It's a grant though, right?
They're looking
If the
for-
grant
Oh,
doesn't,
grant?
if the grant doesn't come through, I want to specify that if the grant doesn't come through, it doesn't.
So, on the summary below, where we could actually, the board could choose to put 100% grant funding instead of just grant. It could be
Yeah.
100% grant funding, or we could add to the summary below that it would be 100% grant funded.
I go along with 100% grant funded on this command car. I mean, you can find a nice used one for 15,
Well,
20.
No, we did, the last one, I think we paid in the mid-20s when Seth
That's what
found
I
it.
said.
It had like under 25,000 miles on it and was able to retrofit it for shorter money.
That's what I was getting at.
I don't know if he's looking for a new unit at this point in time.
At $40,000?
Are we trading the old unit in? I'm not sure. I don't have any details. First time I'm hearing of it.
The CIPC did have a discussion on this, and our recommendation was if it's not grant funded, then we don't approve the car. It
Okay.
needs to be grant
Yeah,
funded.
but if it's not, doesn't state that on here.
Oh, I don't
So
know
we
about
can
that,
put-
but that was our
We
recommendation.
can put, instead of grant, 100% grant funded, or something to that effect?
I think when we write the motion and we appropriate from the various sources, that we could actually list them. And that way, it would cover what you're saying, right? Because it would be the same thing. We're not going to appropriate fire and police unless the debt exclusion passes, right? So I think these are already somewhat set in stone because of the way we're appropriating,
Oh, I don't mind adding the language just for clarity.
right?
See, I don't even know why it's on here if it's going to be paid by a grant.
Well,
The town shouldn't even have anything to worry about.
It was last year that I had seen this for the first time, that the grant funded item would actually be on here where the board already has the ability to accept grants under
Right.
another
That's why I don't
article,
understand why it's
so
even there.
So do we need to even place it?
I don't think
I
it's
think we should-
I don't think it's necessary.
I
It
think it
is,
should be
it is
removed. I
transparent,
think
it's
it should
showing
be-
that there's a capital request and how it would be funded. I don't think it hurts.
So it's not a reimbursement grant, is it?
I don't know
No,
that.
no, it's
No.
not, no.
We don't even know what kind of grant it is, or
Harry
where
says
whether
He
they get
can't-
the money.
He can't buy it unless he gets the grant.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so
So-
it's not like we're buying it and then we're gonna wait for the grant to
Right.
come in, no.
So if it's a grant and the board can accept those funds to fund the project, then it doesn't even need to go to town meeting, does it?
Well, I think it does because
Why?
of the way the CIPC bylaw reads, right? This article reads that we're appropriating a sum of money from various sources
That's true.
for things that you, as the CIPC, have approved. And you approved
Right.
that as a project with a specific type of funding. I guess that's why I thought you had it on here.
Right, that's
Okay.
why. We recommended it to the town
Yep,
with the exception that it be funded by the grant.
okay.
So if
Okay.
it's not funded by the grant, then we, in essence, don't
Yep.
approve the project to be.
Okay.
You don't approve the project, but once this is voted in, there's $40,000.
No,
Grant or no grant?
No, it's,
No, it's
no,
not.
it's not.
Oh, yes, it is.
No,
In
Skip,
my
it's
eyes, it is.
not.
You've
In the
just
current verbiage,
approved.
it would be
No.
subject
You
to
approved
interpretation.
all that money.
Subject to
No,
being
what I'm
funded
saying
by
is
the grant.
if that verbiage is not in that,
Oh, yeah.
then it's
not
subject to
there.
interpretation.
Well, it's actually already,
Point.
I think it's actually already here. I don't know if you have a copy of what we're seeing, but so there's already a
Well, it's gonna be
spreadsheet.
part of the motion.
Well, it is because it's on the warrant, and so it behaves the same as the revolving funds do, where we have the Excel spreadsheet, little printout,
Yeah.
and those revolving funds have those very specific, and we don't always read them out separately,
So-
right? We read,
So to Skip's point, then there's no harm in adding that language in
not
there.
at all.
Alright,
The
so-
motion,
The motion would have it, right?
there's no harm in including it in the
Right.
article either.
Okay.
And the motion would actually specify
Yeah.
to be funded from the funding sources identified below,
Yeah.
or
Okay.
something.
So with that verbiage, that's fine.
So this grant can read, proposed funding source 100% grant. That's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because you got capital budget at $516,743.
But-
It doesn't break it down. It's
That-
got
that-
that $40,000 right up there in that big number.
that's the sum of all, yep. Okay, so that, I'm just gonna change that to read 100% grant. Okay,
Okay, so
Can
I made a motion to place those first two. I'll amend my motion to make sure we clarify the grant language for that first capital CIPC
And
article.
Any monies needs to be adjusted on that as well.
Well, no, the sum is the same. The appropriation comes from different sources.
right, the sum is the same, the sum is the total of the estimated cost of all pieces of equipment.
Although it actually doesn't add up just right now.
Right.
It's not adding up
Well, it's
just right.
71 cents. it
Yeah, you're
says.
right.
So I don't know
How did I
what.
do that? Okay, we're gonna correct that, you're absolutely right. There we go.
And I'll amend her motion by adding the Wachusett Greenways article.
I disagree with you guys, but that's all right. I mean, they get all this money given to them every year, and the town, the highway does so much for them. I don't see why we have to give them money besides.
Well,
Right.
especially when we don't have money to give.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about going for an override on the cruiser and on the ambulance. I mean, would that be better done in a fundraiser on their behalf versus?
They fundraise. So their other host communities all have worked it in because they've been able to.
Right.
Have worked it in under their levy as either in kind, and I did suggest that we do more of an in kind situation, or they do it via cash as part of their budget, and they see it as whether it's part of their recreation budget or part of their fields or part of whatever. We've always done this. For the most part, we've generally taken it off or it's failed on the floor. And because I'm a Greenways member, I didn't want to make that motion, so.
We got a motion, got a second. Proving it's with Greenways on here or without? I don't really.
Well, you only have, who's made the motion? Are you
I made the original
retracting
motion, he added
because
to
of
it.
the your board membership?
I'm not on their board, I'm just a member.
Okay,
But
so
Wayne did an add-on to her motion to
To include that article.
include the Greenways.
So he seconded with an amendment.
Yeah.
so where does that put us?
It puts us all
It
three
puts you
on.
for the whole page.
Can you withdraw your amendment? We can just put two on and then
No,
you can
just
have the
vote
fight.
it. We'll vote it. If it doesn't pass, then I'll remove it. Vote it.
Take the vote.
All those in favor?
Well, before you do that, would it help? I mean, would the board give any consideration to transferring from an existing fund balance the $1,000 instead of free cash? Does that make any difference whatsoever?
Where are you gonna get the money? What fund are you gonna get it from? Okay? I'm gonna start beating up on you. I'm gonna start beating up on you.
We're really whittling them down.
Right. No. So it's like it is, it is. So,
I get, you know,
as written on the on page, whatever, 1, 2, third page.
Skip, I know how you feel about the trails. I
Oh,
know,
yes.
I know.
You know how I feel about it.
do.
I've always
do.
felt that way about it.
I know.
From the day
And
it started, I disagree with the whole damn thing.
I know you do. And I know you don't have the time or interest to get out there on them. I guess what I could honest to God say to you is that those trails are
Honest to God?
bringing.
You don't have to, honest to God. No.
No, where I was headed was they are bringing people to our community.
And you're bringing them to our community, yes they are, and they're buying a soda pop and maybe a gallon of gas.
Gas and-
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, but,
Gallon of gas,
Apparently you've heard me
gallon of gas.
before.
that's right, that's what I was gonna say. So we have a motion to,
For the chair,
yes,
we get a hand for
Chair,
it.
please.
yes, sir.
Has the board done you had mentioned of what the ancillary costs are that we spend to help out the Greenway. Has anybody done a study to find out exactly what those costs are?
No.
I think
You don't even wanna go there, Harry.
No,
You
Skip-
don't
No,
wanna
I'm
go
just
there.
asking, I'm just.
Skip,
it's a good
actually,
question.
but I think lately the costs have been minimal, but that's not to say, it's
In
been
the years
very,
past, we've sent
it's been-
tons and tons of money
it's been
on that.
very up and down. So some of the communities will help out with the ditch clearing automatically, they use their equipment. We have not been doing that, but we of course had one of the bigger projects with the Palmagussit Tunnel. So there was stuff going on there, stuff at Charnock, so yeah, it's been very up and down, very up and down.
I mean, I could see, pardon my opinion, I could see that in the years we put money out, we don't give the 1,000. In the years we don't put money out, that's a lot, it might be something to consider. But to say blanketly, every year we're gonna give $1,000, I don't know if that's in tune with keeping our citizens in shape for the town the way we should be. I guess that's my thought.
In physical shape or fiscal shape?
Both.
Oh,
So we got the motion as, looking to place this whole page, these 1, 2, 3, 4 articles on the warrant.
3.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 So all that for naught. Okay, next page, Margaret.
Okay, next page.
Margaret, could you clarify, I don't mean to cause a problem, but can we clarify RDIC?
Yes. RDIC is, this year, they were funded $25,000 to begin the engineering work. They did request an additional $25,000 that they wanted added to the budget. But with the balance here, and because this is a project-driven, this is a kind of a project-driven article, you know, preparing the site, developing the site, that I thought it would be prudent, and I put it out there to RDIC, to take the $25,000 request off the operating budget and use this funding. If this funding is appropriated for preparing the site for disposition and development, we may qualify for additional matching funds from the federal EDA. They can contribute up to 50% of technical assistance and planning funds for this, so they could potentially double their money here with this. So they'd need access to it in order to do that. Now, I don't know what now that I've said all that, what were you asking?
This is the entire balance of
That's the entire balance.
of an existing fund.
Of the fund, that was from the cutting of the lumber on the property. It all went into that reserve fund.
Oh, of course.
Yep.
Okay, well,
Yep.
thank you.
And so that
clarified-
funding would be reused for their purpose.
Okay.
How's that?
All right, I'll make a motion to place RDIC transfer the Naquag Green repair transfer for the district office, early childhood center parking lot, the turf field replacement project, which obviously is on the ballot anyway, the state grant, the grants and donations, the contracts and chapter 90.
Do we have a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. I'll make a motion to place the revolving funds, the public safety mutual aid, the Marshfield lease agreement, and I'll stop there and I'll do all the bylaws together.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So make a motion to place Finance Committee bylaw change, Town Meeting bylaw change, membership requirement, accounting and collecting, and stretch code.
Do I have a second?
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Wait, be quiet. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We don't have to motion on the citizen petitions, right?
Nope.
Right.
So I'm gonna make a motion to place just the moderator's article.
Why wouldn't you place the citizen's petition?
No, because we don't have to. They're already
Yeah,
on
you
there.
don't have to,
Okay.
they have to
You
appear.
got the
So-
public
Right.
ways for Bear Hill.
That's a placeholder at the moment. I'd ask the board just to hold off on that till.
Oh, okay. Yep, fine.
Why wouldn't we include it and then just take it off if we don't have positive feedback?
Well, we have-
Well, first of all, there might be multiple articles, and, okay. It's board prerogative.
I would say place it as, since we're placing everything else, and if we have to retract it, we can retract it.
But we have time before this is due, so I don't know why I would place it when we don't have anything
We're
yet, other
placing
than,
everything else.
we placed everything else because it's headed on. This one we don't know yet, and we won't know for 2 weeks. Right? We made the motion tonight to lay the way, or not to lay the ways, but to prepare.
Yeah.
Yeah, we made a motion to prepare it, so.
So now it's headed to the
Yeah,
residents. and-
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I have a motion for the moderator article.
so I have a second for that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Right.
The board's holding on the police chief's request, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Not really. Not really. Yes. But, it's the way it's going, it's gonna go. Fine.
So, as it stands right now, there are only 2 articles that haven't been voted to include at the moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's it.
Beautiful.
Moderator.
Mr. Moderator.
It may not be appropriate to ask at this time, but I'm going to. You have
So what else
about
is you in?
Marshfield, you're putting out an RFP on and about the lease. I believe there are 2 other similar leases in town, the old fire station and the historical building.
Yeah, they're gonna be coming up soon too.
Are they all going to be similar leases?
No, and the reason is because those other two leases are on buildings, and the process is different. So those 2 will not come to town meeting. Those, the board will be able to execute as leases. This is the only one, because it's land, not a building, that has to come to town meeting. That's what legal advised. Okay?
Do you expect those other 2 leases to be similar?
Long-term
currently
leases?
not.
Long-term leases? Yes.
They're different. Just something to be talked about later.
Okay.
You're talking in relation to the fields versus the buildings, is that what you're talking, or you're
No,
talking?
I'm talking about the 2 buildings.
To the scene, yeah. Okay.
2 buildings are different leases, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, would be.
One is not even going to be up for, is not even scheduled to be up for negotiation, the old fire station. The other is expired and has to go before the board.
I feel like there's a secret here. What are we getting at?
I don't know.
I don't know, like the old fire station, the brigade does majority of the maintenance.
Yeah.
The historical is just the opposite of that. you need a new roof over there, that's gonna be coming before town, so.
That,
This is rumblings of older generations, not, hate to use the word younger, but that's all.
I think right now it's apples to oranges because the old fire station isn't even open yet, and so much of the work and the money that has been raised was in order to get it ready for public use. So it would be interesting to see once it's in regular rotating public use the way the other building has been, what we would do at that point. That'd be,
to your
Sorry.
point on that
Or do
request,
they do the same and do fundraising to take care of the roof
Yeah.
instead of coming to the town?
yeah,
I mean, we're not sure what that's going either.
hand gestures.
Just, some of the old timers are,
I
know.
think it's a fair question. It's
it
just
is a fair
not.
question. So, to the point, I mean, that roof does need replacement, and there has been a quote received on that, and it has been presented to CIPC, and available funding does not allow for that. It was a $23,000 project that's going to have to be readdressed at a later time, so it'll give us time to talk to the Historical Society, about how we could work together to possibly do something like
careful,
that.
don't put me under the bus there.
No, but it's just like everything else where the town owns it, and then who is funding the capital repairs? And again, with that building not yet even open, it's not nothing over there yet is really a repair. It's a restoration renovation. But yeah, I mean, look at the pool, right? Look at the capital money that's gone into the pool that we own.
Yeah. So certainly for discussion later.
Anything else? If not, I'll motion for adjournment.
To go into executive session.
Oh, I forgot,
we-
we still have
can we
an
not?
executive session?
Can we not?
How many do
It
we
must
have?
be done April 23rd. It must be done April 23rd.
What's that?
You good?
How many do we have?
These are the minutes to be accepted.
Oh dear.
It's a packet for everybody.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh,
So,
These are to approve executive session minutes, so.
so we can do it fairly quickly.
have you read them all?
What does the board want to do?
Is that one packet?
No, this is everybody's
Everybody's.
packets.
So why couldn't we have them available in the office so everybody could come in and read them and then?
They have
They
been.
were.
I have it.
So then they should
Yeah, I have
have
that.
5 minutes.
Margaret, I haven't read those.
Oh, you haven't?
Nope, I
Okay.
have not been in the office.
Okay.
So if we can do it in 2 weeks, that'd be great.
All right, let's do it in 2 weeks.
So do we still need to go into executive session or
No.
we adjourn it?
We can
But
adjourn.
there'll be no getting out of it next time, right?
All right. So let's do it at 5:30 while we're fresh before the meeting.
All right, we can do that too.
That works.
That works.
Yeah. So do I have a second on my motion for adjournment?
Second.
Yes.
I have a
All in
second.
favor?
Aye.
Phyllis.
Thank you.
Hi. Okay.